Okay, it's been a little while since I've made a video on this subject, but it's as relevant now as it ever has been. There was a group of protesters on the day that Boris Johnson became Prime Minister, congregating outside Downing Street, and a lot of them were people who usually get involved in these sort of protests, like people that are clearly on the hard left of politics, and that's not an insult. It's just it's a fact, right? They would identify themselves with socialist worker and other well to the left movements. Trans activists were there. Antifa was there. Although I would say the trans activists, I'm not sure what their issue would be. Boris Johnson's actually pretty socially liberal on LGBT issues, and his record shows that. Anyway, I came across a comment in this post. It was in a group, and I've seen this a few times now. So I think it's about time I addressed this. Oh, it's a pity they have time to protest. They'd be better getting a job, right? So this is something I see a lot from conservatives. If they disagree with someone politically, they always go to employment status. They always go to, oh, does this person have a job or not? It really bugs me. Um, I know what unemployment's like. I know the anxiety and the stress and the downright fear that actually comes with it. So people who think it's a picnic are just ignorant. But this mentality of you're protesting so you mustn't have a job is utter nonsense. Number one, it's factually not true because if you look at people being interviewed in these sort of protests, sometimes they're teachers, sometimes university lecturers. Yeah, they're often of left wing persuasion. Um, but it's interesting that conservatives don't apply that mentality to right wing protesters, like, say, in defense of Tommy Robinson or cheering Trump, for example. Why is the same mentality not accorded to them? So it's just a lazy mentality that a lot of conservatives have. I'm going to talk about everyone. I'm not saying all conservatives have this view, but many do. They have this attitude that if someone's involved in a protest, they must be unemployed. But here's another thing: even if they are unemployed, the state of unemployment doesn't mean you suddenly have a right or you suddenly have no right to get involved in peaceful protest. Peaceful protest, wherever you think of it, is a democratic right. So long as people aren't using violence or obstructing others, then it's a democratic right. Um, so I just get a bit tired of that. Now, Johnson himself, one of the questions that came up in his first, it wasn't Prime Minister's questions formally, but his first session as Prime Minister in the House of Commons, a Labour member asked about universal credit. I think it was Chris Bryant, actually, and the waiting time. This is something that causes enormous problems, enormous anxiety. It's a very difficult thing. Well, Johnson's attitude was, oh well, the honourable member knows that there is. I think he put it a goal. I forget the exact terminology, but he implied that there is a way that claimants can get the money up front. If there is, it certainly isn't straightforward or easy, because if it was, we wouldn't be seeing these tragic cases where people are taking their own lives because of the pressure that they are under. Universal credit, the waiting time is literally costing lives because it's pushing people over the edge. This is money that people need. This is what the welfare system, whatever you think of it, was set up for as a safety net. So if it's not giving people that safety net, if it's forcing them to wait weeks and weeks and weeks when they have no other source of income, it's that's just wrong. I don't mind giving them obligations, fine, but if someone's legally entitled to money, then don't make them wait for it. It's just it's this way that the Tories have of a culture that's based on sanctions, a culture in the DWP that's based on punishing people, not helping people. And the Tories will always say, whether it's Cameron, May, or Johnson, oh, but we're bringing people into work, we're helping people. They never ever admit the enormous anxiety, the enormous, frankly, suffering that is going on in the DWP right now. They just won't acknowledge it because they want to cover themselves, and it's pretty damn shameful. And I have no confidence that Johnson's going to be any different from his predecessors in this regard. And that's very depressing because it's wrong. I'm not talking about, oh, just give people free money and that's it. Of course, there's obligations, but don't treat people like dirt. Don't make them wait when they have no other source of income, causing enormous anxiety and stress. And I'll round it up because I think I've got space limitations here. But this lazy thing, oh, they must be unemployed. Number one, even if they are, they've still got a democratic right to protest. Number two, it's not factually true. Many of them have jobs. And number three, why is the same logic not applied to right wing protesters?